Look at this apple tree. It has plenty of water, perfect sunlight, and it is producing an enormous crop. But because it exists completely isolated in a dark void, every single apple drops to the floor and immediately rots. We often treat our own spiritual growth exactly like this isolated tree. Take the famous list of virtues found in Galatians 5, a section of the Bible that highlights traits like love, joy, and peace, collectively called the fruit of the Spirit. We tend to read that text as a private checklist for self-improvement, but there is a glaring biological flaw in that approach. A tree never consumes its own apples. If the entire point of a healthy tree is to bear fruit, and the tree itself can't eat it, who is actually meant to consume what you produce? Any internal virtue you develop, whether it's perfect peace or boundless joy, remains dormant until you distribute it. It goes stale unless it reaches an external recipient. The Gospel of John, specifically chapter 15, provides a framework for how this distribution is supposed to work. It uses an agricultural metaphor, defining Jesus as the source vine and individuals as connected branches. This animated diagram of a plant stem shows exactly how that relationship functions in nature. The branches act strictly as biological delivery systems. They do not store nutrients, they carry them. The sole biological purpose of the branch is to ensure those resources are pushed outward, creating a piece of fruit explicitly meant to feed someone else. True spiritual fruitfulness operates as a supply chain. It is a mechanism designed to nourish a community, not a personal collection of moral trophies. This brings us to a strict rule of human interaction. Spiritual fruit is inherently relational. Love requires a receiver to feel it. Peace has no utility if you are sitting alone in a quiet room. It must be projected outward to comfort others standing in the middle of a chaotic environment. That biological delivery system of the vine and branches maps perfectly onto the macro-level execution of modern community service. When you volunteer at a food bank or organize resources for vulnerable populations, you are acting as the physical conduit. You are pulling nutrients from the vine and delivering them directly into local neighborhoods. Active community engagement is the literal, required manifestation of those branches operating in the real world. This supply chain operates on a micro level, too. The fruit of kindness, for example, only gains value at the exact moment it leaves your possession. You dispense it through simple daily mechanics. You pay for a stranger's coffee. You compliment a tired cashier. You return your neighbor's trash bin. Consider self-control. We usually view it as rigid personal discipline, like sticking to a diet. But in a community setting, self-control functions as a defensive mechanism. When you restrain the impulse to yell during a neighborhood association argument or hold your tongue during a minor property dispute, you actively prevent localized conflict. By exhibiting that restraint, you create a measurable perimeter of emotional stability for the people living immediately next door. Some fruits require a highly abrasive catalyst to activate. Patience requires a high-stress environment, like a modern workplace, to be produced at all. You dispense patience by enforcing a mandatory 60-second pause before replying to a passive-aggressive email from a manager. You dispense it by practicing active listening, keeping your mouth shut and refusing to interrupt during a high-tension team meeting. And you dispense it by consciously extending grace rather than outward frustration when a coworker misses a minor project deadline. Difficult human interactions are not obstacles to your spiritual growth. They are the exact necessary conditions required for the fruit of patience to be consumed by the people around you. In the first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, humanity is given the mandate to be fruitful and multiply. While that originally referenced biological human reproduction, it reveals a fascinating contrast when applied to the concept of spiritual distribution. This network diagram illustrates the mechanics of spiritual multiplication. When you share a virtue with 3 connected nodes, they immediately pass it on to 3 more, operating as an exponential addition to the environment. Look at this steep growth curve. If you share a physical good, the volume diminishes as it is consumed. But when you share a spiritual good, the total volume within the network increases. Unlike physical goods, spiritual fruit multiplies in volume and impact precisely at the moment it is consumed by others. The New Testament letter of 1 Corinthians identifies Jesus as the first fruits of the resurrection, providing the ultimate historical example of this process. He embodied every virtue he taught, ultimately offering his own life as the sustenance, absorbing sins and distributing grace through the very act of his death. This historical pattern reveals that the development of your character serves a purpose far beyond your own well-being. You are merely a branch. The friction, the stress, and the daily challenges you face are actively birthing fruit designed specifically to sustain the people closest to you. So, who is going to consume your fruit today?